Great. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ms. Humbert here, and today we're going to be doing Unit 4 Learning Target 2 notes. So we're going to talk about factoring quadratics by grouping. So first thing I want to do is kind of review a little bit of what we worked on yesterday, because I think that'll help us with today's stuff. So when we go to figure out our greatest common factor, I want to figure out what number divides 4 and 12. So I have 1 and 4, and then I also have 2 and 2. For 12, I have 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. So our largest number of each is a 4. Okay, and I can't take x's out of both terms, so I'm not taking x's out at all. So I'm dividing each of these by 4. So 4x divided by 4 is just x. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. So that's our final answer for number 1. Taking a look at number 2. I want to figure out what divides 9 and 15. So 9 and 15. So I have 1 and 9 and 3 and 3. For 15, 1 and 15, and then 3 and 5. So the largest number that divides both of them is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and divide each of these by 3. And I can't take out an x from each term, so I'm just taking out a 3. Well, 9 divided by 3 is 3, and then the x squared is going to stay there. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So this right here is my final answer for number 2. Now, let's take a look at number 3 here. So we want to figure out what divides 2, 4, and 10. So for 2, it's just 1 and 2. For 4, it's 1 and 4, and 2 and 2. For 10, it's 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. So the largest number in each of the lists is 2. So I'm going to be dividing each of these by 2, or apparently 5 as I wrote. Okay, so when I do that, I can't take out an x because there's not an x in every term. Well, 2 divided by 2 is just 1, so I'm just going to write that x to the third there. You could write 1x to the third if you wanted to. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, and then you get x squared. And 10 divided by 2 is going to be 5. So that's your final answer for number 3. So now let's take a look at what factoring by grouping is. Okay, so you're going to use factoring by grouping only when there is 4 terms. Okay, so that's really important to remember that it's only when there is 4 terms. So let's go ahead and take a look at the steps. So I would suggest writing these steps down, so that way if you ever get stuck, you have these steps to reference. So the first step is to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms together in parentheses. Then you're going to divide out the greatest common factor of each group. Then you're going to check to make sure the inside parentheses match. So if your leftovers are matching, then those parentheses are going to be one of your factors, and the GCFs that you have on the outside is going to be the other factor. And then you're going to write the 2 factors multiplied together. So right now that probably seems like a whole lot of mumbo jumbo. So I'm going to kind of go through and we'll do some examples, and then hopefully it should make sense after that. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at this first one. Okay, so first step, step number 1, is to group. So we're going to make 2 groups. So the first 2 terms go in a group, and the second 2 terms go in the group. So then I want to figure out the greatest common factor. So I want to figure out what I can divide x squared and 2x by. So if you don't understand practice 1, it's really important that you understand practice 1, or you're not going to be able to do this lesson at all. Okay, so between x squared and 2x, I can take out an x. So then really I'm dividing each of these by x. So then I get x plus 2. Okay? Then between 4 and 8, I can actually divide out of 4. Now if you guys still need to make that list, feel free. You can still make that list, okay? I'm just not going to anymore, but if you still need to do that, go ahead and do that. So I'm dividing each of those terms by 4. So I'm going to write a 4 on the outside, and I keep switching pens on accident. So 4x divided by 4, well that's just going to leave me with 1x. And 1x can be written as x. And then 8 divided by 4 is 2. So this is what I meant about the leftovers matching. You'll notice that this leftover and this leftover are matching. So since my leftovers are matching, I can go ahead and write those as one parenthesis. So now I'm going to get rid of that. My other parenthesis is going to come from what is on the outside. So what I took out is the greatest common factor. So then my other parenthesis is going to be x plus 4. Now it doesn't matter which order you write these 2 in. If you have it flip-flopped, it means the same thing. Mainly because 2 times 3 is the same as 3 times 2. So now let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 5. So between 3x squared and 6x, I can take out a 3 and an x. So I'm dividing each of those terms by 3x. So 3x squared divided by 3x, that's just going to cancel down to x when I subtract those exponents on the x. Negative 6x divided by 3x, well, negative 6 divided by 3 is going to give me a 2, and my x's are going to cancel out. Now, out of my second group, I need to figure out what divides 5 and 15. Well, dividing 5 and 15 is going to be 5. So then I'm going to go ahead and take 5 out of each group. Well, when I do that, I get x minus 3. So these two don't match. So this is actually a problem that doesn't work. I promise you on your practice problem, they don't work. They all will work. So this is a case where they don't match, so then we might have done something wrong, but I will tell you in this case that we didn't. Because when you're factoring by grouping, they should always match. So now let's take a look at number 6. So for number 6, I need to figure out what divides 2 and 5. Well, that's just going to be a 1. Between x squared and x, I can just take out an x. So really, I could just write 1x as just x. So I'm dividing each of those terms by x. So 2x squared divided by x is just 2x. 5x divided by x is just 5. So now I need to figure out what divides 4x and 10. So that's going to be 2. Okay, then when I divide each by 2, I end up with 2x plus 5. So here, my leftovers are matching. So then my next step is I'm going to write those factors out like so. So my leftovers are matching, so I write those out in a parenthesis, and then I'm going to write what was the greatest common factor on the outside. I'm going to write as x plus 2. Ooh, a crayon one. Okay, so that's my final answer for number 6. So let's take a look at number 7. So for number 7, we're going to create our two parentheses. Between 7 and 21, I can take out a 7. Between x squared and x, I can take out an x. So I'm dividing everything by 7x. So then I get x minus 3. Between 10 and 30, I can take out a 10. And then I get x minus 3. So then my leftovers are matching, so I can go ahead and write them out as one parenthesis. So I can write those out, and then my next parenthesis is going to be 7x plus 10, because that was my greatest common factor. So that's my answer to number 7. So let's take a look at number 8. So we want to make two groups. So between 3 and 8, I can't factor anything out. But I can take out an x. So that's going to be my greatest common factor. So then I get 3x minus 8. Now I notice here that there's a negative. When there is a negative on the first term of your parentheses, you need to take out a negative greatest common factor. So I'm going to take out a negative. And between 16 and 6, I can take out a 2. And then I get 3x minus 8. So now my leftovers are matching, so I'm going to write that out. Now if I hadn't have taken out a negative 2, this would have been a positive 8, which meant it wouldn't have matched. So that's not what we want. That's why I took out a negative 2, so that would be a minus sign. Then once I get rid of my leftovers, I'm going to write what was outside of each of my parentheses, which is x minus 2. So that's your answer for number 8. Okay. Let's take a look at number 9. So for number 9, we're going to go ahead and we are going to factor by grouping. So our first step then is to make our groups. So I'm going to make a group here and here. Between x squared and 3x, I can take out an x, and then I'm left with x plus 3. Now again here, I have a negative as the first term, so I need to take out a negative GCF. So between 2x and 6, I can take out a negative 2. So I'm going to divide everything by a negative 2, which in turn is going to make this a positive x and that a positive 3. So my leftovers are matching, so I can write that as one factor. And then in my second group, I'm going to take out what's on the outside, which is x minus 2. So then I get x plus 3 times x minus 2. Just a couple more to go. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 10. Again, making our two groups. So what divides 4 and 6? Well, that's going to be 2. And then we can take out an x. So dividing 4x squared by 2x, I just get x. 6x divided by 2x is 3. Almost. There we go. Then, now, between 2x and 3, I can't take anything out. There's no greatest common factor. So what I do is I write a 1 on the outside. Okay, so I'll show you why we write that 1 here in a second. So our leftovers are matching, and that should have a 2 there. So we have 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 3. So that's one of our factors, is 2x plus 3. Then our other factor, the reason why I wanted to write that 1 there is to remind myself that when I add that other parenthesis, I need to have a 1 there. It's not just 0. I need to have the 1 right here. So then my answer is 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 1. Let's take a look at number 11. So I'm going to go ahead and make my groups. Between 6 and 9, I can take out a 3 and an x. So I'm dividing everything by 3x. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. X squared divided by x is just x. Negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3, and our x's will cancel. Same thing on number 11. We can't take out a greatest common factor of anything, so I'm going to take out basically a 1 just as a placeholder. So my leftovers are matching, so then my factor is 2x minus 3. And then on the outside is going to be my other factor, which is 3x plus 1. So that's our final answer for number 11. Last but not least, let's take a look at 12 and 13. So we're going to keep doing the same thing. Even as the numbers get bigger, you're still going to keep doing the same thing. What divides 14 and 5? Nothing. Can you take an x out of each? Yes. So then you get 14x plus 5. So here I see that I have a negative as my first term, so I need to take out a negative greatest common factor. So what divides 28 and 10? Well, that's going to be 2. And then I get 14x plus 5. Okay, so then here's what's left over, which is 14x plus 5. Okay, so once I take that 14x plus 5 and write that as a parenthesis, then I'm going to write which goes on the outside, which is x minus 2. So that's my final answer for number 12. Last but not least, let's do number 13. So I'm going to make my two pairs. Between 10x and 3x, let's take out an x, and then I get 10x minus 3. Okay, between 20 and 6, I can take out a 2. And then I'm left with 10x minus 3. So my leftovers are matching, so I can write those down. And once I take out my leftovers, I'm going to write what's left after that, which is x plus 2. Okay? So that's my final answer, and that concludes your note video. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for listening.